All right, we're gonna jump in here. So thank you for joining, everyone. Appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule to join us. Insurance is a big topic in every situation, but given the environment that we're in, for a lot of reasons, it's becoming more and more important. And we're going to be discussing insurance essentials and how they can protect you and your business. My name is Randy Jones, and I'll be your host. I'm joined by Greg Fritz and Larry Warshaw from Intrepid Direct Insurance. As the name suggests, Intrepid Direct is a direct insurance provider, which allows them to simplify the entire process all the way from the initial application, and in the event of claims, they're able to simplify the process for you, but also allows them to eliminate the cost of a middleman. Um, their goal is to work in specific industries, making them experts in the risks of your needs and their customers' needs. They're not generalists. They work very specific in certain industries, and which is beneficial for you to make sure you have the proper coverage. Gary and Larry will be discussing coverage overviews, FDD compliance, risk management, best practices, and questions to ask when you're researching insurance providers. There is a Q&A button down at the bottom of your screens. If you could use that to post any questions that you may have. We'll likely try to address those at the end, because I think the content that will be shared with you might address some questions as they pop up, but we will be sure to get to them if we haven't. Just a quick note, the meeting will be recorded. You will get a copy of the recording and also also a copy of the slides after we're done. And then with that, let's dive in. I'll hand it over to Greg and Larry to get us started.
Randy, thank you very much. And for everyone who's attending, either live here today or in recording in the future, appreciate you guys taking some time out of your day to delve into the exciting world of insurance. As Randy said, insurance is becoming more and more important in what our needs are. And, looking at, when you're building your own business, you're making a lot of sacrifices with your life, your family, pouring a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into getting your company launched, building it out so that's, becomes a success, and then building out your empire. So, whether it's your first couple of months in working with your franchise, or even just identifying if this is the right fit for you, or if it's something you've been doing this for decades, you've taken the time and the effort into building out your business, and you want to make sure that you have a partner that's going to be there available for you to ensure that your needs are being met from an insurance standpoint, that you have the protections in place at not just the right coverages, but at the right limits, so that when and if things do happen and things go awry, that you can get your business back up and running as quickly as possible to help continue to support yourselves, your families, and your communities. So again, thank you very much for taking some time with us today. I'm joined with Larry Warshaw, who's our risk management director. He's going to be going through some different concepts that can help ensure that you can take steps that will ensure that we can mitigate any kind of basic exposures, or that if an accident does happen, that we can minimize the impact of that accident. But I'll start off with just going through some basic insurance concepts you'll find in your commercial insurance policies, so you have a better understanding around what you're protecting, what some of the situations that may cause that need to be, and then also go through some different ways to ensure that you're going to have the right coverage in place, not just to ensure that you're fulfilling your contractual obligations, but that we can make sure that your business will continue to run if anything does go awry. So one of the first coverages I'm going to jump into. Okay, there we go. One of the most obvious coverages that you're going to find on your insurance policy is your property insurance. And this is going to be covering your building structure. So the actual structure of your building is being protected by this particular coverage, as well as any kind of contents that you have within your building. sometimes called BPP or business personal property. So business personal property may actually go into things such as your equipment, your furniture, your inventory or stock that you may have within your business premises is going to be protected under this coverage, as well as anything else that may be there on the premises as well. Now, additional piece with the business, the property coverage is something called business income or time element. Now, this is an optional coverage, but it's something that should be heavily considered because what happens here is that if there is a covered claim or covered loss that occurs, such as a fire or a hailstorm that interrupts your business, you need to shut down for a period of time to get your business back up and running. This is going to help to pay for any kind of additional income that you're going to be losing because of that interruption, as well as continue to pay ongoing bills that you may have. There are bills that even though your business may stop for a period of time, bills will still continue to come in. So this will help pay for your bills, but possibly most importantly, it's going to help pay for your payroll. So we all know that how difficult it is in this current environment to be able to hire on strong talent. If you currently have strong talent, to be able to retain it is imperative. So being able to keep people on board that are vital to your business while your business is temporarily halted due to a covered claim, this will allow you to continue to keep them on board, keep the payroll going, and it's going to help to expedite that reopening and relaunch when your business is ready to do so. So property overall is insurance that's going to help to ensure that you can recover and rebuild as quickly as possible after a loss and minimize that impact on any kind of your business operations. Now, the next big component with your commercial insurance policy is general liability. And in this particular component, this protects you in the case that someone's injured or something is damaged in the course of doing your business. So there are three main categories within GL. The first is bodily injury, which is essentially helps pay for the medical expenses, the legal fees, and any settlements in the case that a third party or a customer is injured in the course of you doing your business. A second piece of this is the property damage. Now, we just discussed property, which was a first party coverage in that if your building is damaged, it's going to help to rebuild your building. But in case of general liability, this is something that in the course of doing business, if you damage someone else's property, this is going to help to pay for the damage or the replacement costs of their personal property, as well as any kind of legal fees that may come from that if those ensue. The third component of general liability is personal and advertising injury. So in the course of trying to market your program or speaking out publicly, if there's any kind of slander or libel or copyright infringement, this will help to defend you in the case of lawsuits may entail from that. So overall, your general liability, your GL, these claims tend to have a longer tail on them in that there's additional parties that are involved. It's not just you trying to fix your property. There's the claimant who's possibly filing suit. There's attorneys. There's legal fees. So this typically is a longer process if there is a claim. And we're also seeing just a higher volume of what is being called as nuclear verdicts in this realm, which is driving the costs for general liability higher than what we've seen in the past. But overall, general liability is going to help you protect your business from any kind of lawsuits that may be entailed from doing from the business process that you're using. And you want to make sure that you have the right limits set to protect your business as best as possible. Moving into the next coverage, we have auto coverage. And this is a pretty common component within the commercial insurance policies. This is going to help protect any kind of vehicles that you use for your business, whether you own them or they're being used otherwise. So for auto coverage, they're very similar to the coverages you'll find for your personal auto insurance. You have your liability coverage, which is going to provide protection in case there's an accident that's involved with one of your vehicles. It's going to pay for the other person's damage, their physical property, as well as again a bodily injury that's entailed. Then you have your physical damage coverage. And so again, similar to your personal auto insurance coverage, you have your collision coverage that if there's a collision, your actual vehicle will be covered for any kind of repairs necessary or replacements. Then there's also comprehensive coverage, which is anything outside of the regular collision, so such as theft or vandalism would help to be covered in these particular situations. Finally, there's uninsured and underinsured motorist protection. So in the case that your vehicle is hit by an uninsured or underinsured motorist, it pays for your medical expenses, your vehicle itself. And unfortunately, this is another situation that we're seeing on a higher volume than what we've seen in the past, with more and more uninsured motorists on the roads. Now, within the auto coverage for commercial policies, this is where it starts to become a little bit different than a personal auto insurance. You have two different basic categories. You have your owned autos, and these are vehicles that are licensed to the business. These are things that your business is using on a regular basis, that is actually listed on your policy. Then you have also your hired and non-owned vehicles. So these are vehicles that either they're vehicles you're renting to conduct your business operations, or they're vehicles that your employees are using. They're your employees' vehicles that are out on the road, such as, let's say, a delivery driver that you employ that is using their vehicle to make those deliveries. That would be a non-owned auto. So again, these are accidents that there may be other protection available from a personal standpoint, but ultimately this is being used in your business. So your business may be liable for any kind of accidents that are caused. And this is where this protection can come into place to truly protect your business. Now, the next piece is an optional coverage, but it's something that's highly recommended, particularly in the environment that we are right now. There are the employment practice and liability insurance is basically something that's whenever there's a wrongful act, typically, such as claims focusing on terminations or retaliation or discrimination or sexual harassment. This will help protect you and your business from any kind of those claims that may come from an employment standpoint for decisions may be made. Some coverages that may be included in this are the costs that are associated with settling or defending these claims that may arise. And what we've been seeing is about industry-wide, about a 30% increase in the volume of these claims over the past 10 years. So this is definitely something that is becoming more and more prevalent, which is a reason why you want to make sure that you take a close look at the options with your EPLI to ensure you're protecting yourself and your business from this fastly rising claim. Now, this next one we jump into is becoming more and more prevalent as we're becoming more and more dependent upon technology. And there's more and more information that is being stored on either shared or private networks. Cyber liability insurance is something that is increasingly important. This is generally going to extend to a few different scenarios. The first is data breach. So if there's a data breach claim, this will help to pay for any kind of expenses that are related to either notifying potential customers who are potentially impacted by the data breach, as well as any kind of credit monitoring systems that you may extend to your customers in the case of a breach, or any kind of public relations expenses that may result from a data breach. Next are any kind of legal or defense fees, costs, and settlements that may come out of any kind of lawsuit that comes from a data breach, as well as what is now kind of arising as well as this cyber extortion. So you have cyber extortion protection that will help protect you in case your business is being held any kind of due to any kind of ransomware that may be out there. And then finally, a additional component that's included in the cyber, which is something that we touched on when we talked about property, was business interruption. So any kind of additional bills or expenses that are coming in that you're not able to have income coming in due to a temporary halt in your operation due to a data breach. This is when the cyber protection can come and help you. Again, cyber is an optional coverage, but it is quickly arising as an increasingly important coverage to consider. Now, the next coverage is one that's unfortunately we've been seeing in the news quite a bit recently, and that's flood insurance. And flood, by definition, is the excess of water on typically dry land that's impacting either 2 or more properties or 2 or more acres. And unfortunately, with some of the heavy rainfall we've been seeing, we'll eventually start seeing the rapid snow melt. Any kind of overflow from rivers or lakes, that's going to be a flood-related incident. And one of the big misnomers with flood is that you have to be in a floodplain to qualify for it or purchase flood insurance. And that's not the case. In fact, 25% of the claims that the industry sees are in areas that are outside of high-risk areas for flood. So flood, while it is an optional coverage, if you're in a high-risk area, it's going to be something that's going to be required of you. But if you're not, it's definitely something that you still want to consider, just due to the fact that this is going to protect your building and your contents, including any kind of inventory, in the case there is a flood that's going to have an impact on your business. And the next coverage, we're going to move from flood to umbrella insurance. And umbrella is more or less a catch-all policy for our coverage for you. This is going to set on top of some of your other policy limits. So each of your coverage is going to have a set limit that will pay up to, but not beyond that set limit in the case something happens. Your umbrella sets above that. So it kind of becomes that catch-all that if there's a catastrophe that your limits are not sufficient to pay out the necessary amounts, you have your umbrella policy that can set over that and help make sure that you can get right back on track with either your business or to avoid any kind of unforeseen circumstances. Now, umbrella, due to just the essence of it, is typically going to be set in millions of dollar increments. But it's usually relatively inexpensive because, again, this is something that's more of an excess type situation. Now, the final coverage I want to touch on is workers' compensation. And this is something that is required in the vast majority of states. And as with most other coverages, accidents happen and your employees are not immune to these accidents. So when physical injuries occur during the course of work, there are a few items that come into play with your workers' compensation. The first and the most obvious is medical expenses. So the medical expenses for your employee to be treated and to be healed, that is something that's going to be included in workers' comp, as well as any lost wages. So any kind of lost wages that occur due to the employee being unable to work due to an injury incurred during the course of doing business will be included in workers' compensation as well. The next piece is any kind of disability benefits that the employee may be eligible for, that if they're unable to work moving forward, there's compensation for that built in within the workers' compensation. And finally, in the event that an employee passes away due to an injury at work, this will help pay for any kind of death benefits that can be provided to the employee and their family in that particular situation. So, ultimately, this coverage not only protects your employees, but it also protects your business from any kind of potential lawsuits that may arise from your employees being injured while on the job. Now, a question you may ask yourself is, what and how much do I need for my insurance? And a very good initial resource for you would be your FDD. So your FDD is actually going to line out what is required by your franchisor as to what coverages are necessary and what limits are necessary. Now, keep in mind with that those are the bare minimums. Those are what you're required to carry by contract to have your franchise, but that may not be enough in your particular situation. So it's always advised to go to a trusted advisor, someone who is an expert within the insurance industry, to ensure that the policy that you're setting up with the coverages and the limits are going to truly meet not just what you're required to have by your franchisor, but are going to truly protect you and your family and your business in the event that something does occur. So here at Intrepid Direct Insurance, this is something that this is our wheelhouse. We work with franchisees across the nation. This is what we do on a daily basis, is construct policies in a way that it's not just going to meet the FTD requirements that your brand requires, but also set it up in a way that we can understand your specific business needs and the exposures that we typically see with the line of business that you each do, and can help construct policies that are going to protect you long term. Now, are we everything to everyone? No. But there are some brands that may be outside of what our expertise is, but we invite every opportunity to discuss that. And if it's something we cannot provide, then we can always provide options or recommendations for other potential opportunities. So I'm going to turn over to Mr. Warshaw here to discuss different ways to mitigate risk.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Randy, and thanks, Greg, for inviting me to this call, and thanks everyone for hopping on. We're going to talk about risk management best practices. First, I'm going to tell you there are 5 different ways that you can manage your business risks of claims. And the claims that I'm really talking about mostly are injury claims. I'm not talking so much about property claims, but you could go through the same analysis for that. But there's 5. We'll go through each one of the 5 in more detail. But trust me, we're going to spend most of our time on numbers 4 and 5. But I wanted to give you a complete compendium of all of the different categories. So we'll start with risk avoidance and talk about what that means. So risk avoidance means don't do it. If you don't do the activity that gives rise to the risk, then obviously you've avoided that risk. So that doesn't mean don't open your doors, but it does mean you ask yourself questions from time to time. Is this really a necessary part of my business, or is this particular offering of my business something I'm getting enough return on that it makes sense to take this risk on? So I'll just give you a couple of examples. Greg referred earlier to delivery drivers. If you have delivery drivers who are your employees operating their own vehicles to take your product to your customers, that's a risk. Folks get into accidents on the road. We insure many delivery franchisees. They drive millions and millions of miles, and as careful as they are, there are accidents. It's a risk that can't be avoided if the core of your business is delivering your product using your employees to do it. I'll give you another example. If you run a gym, do you offer showers to your members? Couple of things about showers in a gym. One is they're slippery. And so people slip and fall and get injured in the showers. And then, of course, unfortunately, from time to time, there are misguided individuals who like to put cameras in places where folks are undressing. And that's a different type of claim, all of which can be avoided if you're not offering showers. But again, maybe that is a core component of what your membership needs to get the most experience out of your gymnasium. And so maybe you can't avoid that stuff, but that's what avoidance is. It's just a technique that you can use to select which risks you do and do not take on as part of your business plan. The next part is risk transfer. This is something that we all do. Risk transfer is essentially a contractual arrangement wherein you take some of the risk that you've taken on and you pass it on to someone else through a contract. The most obvious example of that is us right here. It's insurance. You sign a contract, or we agree to accept a certain level of premium, and in return for accepting that premium, we provide that risk transfer. You transfer the risk of your business, like workers' compensation or whatever, to us as the insurance company. But there are more contractual ways to do that. One is waivers. Again, I'll go back to the gym example. You see this all the time. Welcome to the gym. First thing we're going to ask you to do is to sign a waiver, which says, I recognize that some of the things I'm going to do while I'm here might be dangerous and they could cause me injury or death. And I agree to accept the risk of all of that stuff I'm going to do, lifting weights or whatever else. And if something happens, I've agreed to assume that risk myself, also known as assumption of the risk. I will point out that there are certain jurisdictions where these are valid and certain jurisdictions where they are not, but where they are, it is a valid way to contractually transfer risk from the business to the customer. There are other contracts, like you get your parking lot plowed when it snows. One of your clients slips and falls in the parking lot that should have been plowed better, should have been salted better, whatever. You can put into your contract with your snow removal company that if that happens, the snow removal company agrees to defend and indemnify, meaning pay for lawyers and then pay for any settlement that might result from your client slipping and falling in the parking lot that should have been avoided by proper snow removal. You can transfer that risk because the business is the one that's going to get sued, and then you'll bring in, by you, I mean we, because we'll be managing the claim, more on that later. We would bring in the snow removal company to pay all of that expense, which keeps your loss run clean. It nets out to keep your loss run clean because the snow removal company will be paying for everything. Next one, you can retain risk. You can retain all of the risk. You can choose not to buy insurance, except for your FDD, as Greg pointed out, requires you to buy certain levels of insurance. So really, it's not an option for you to, in the real world, to not have insurance, but in the theoretical world, you could not buy any. What you will do, though, is retain some of the risk by selecting a deductible level. Various lines of coverage throughout your insurance portfolio will offer different deductible levels. Sometimes this will be like on your auto collision, your commercial auto collision coverage. You might select a $2,500 deductible so that if your owned auto hits a tree and there's $5,000 worth of damage to the vehicle to get it repaired, you'd pay the first $2,500 and your insurance company would pay the other $2,500. Pretty easy stuff. It's very similar to how your personal auto would work. There are other deductibles that you might select. There is, for example, Greg mentioned a business interruption coverage if your business is shut down for a certain period of time. These are typically time period deductibles, meaning the first 24 hours of your business operation after the business has to shut down is your deductible. And then your insurance company would come in after 24 hours and pick up the profit and other coverages that are required after that. But it could be 24, it could be 48, it could be 72. There's different deductible levels for time for that. So you can retain risk, and you probably will retain some of this risk, and that helps lower your premiums. The more risk you retain, the more your premiums will be lower. Now we'll get to the big ones that I was promised you we'd spend some more time on. First is loss reduction. Losses are going to happen. That's why insurance companies are here. We believe we do a very good job of partnering with our insureds to help them identify ways to reduce losses after they have happened. Part of that is planning for losses and how you're going to structure your business so that evidence is captured that helps you defend claims that are brought against you. So for example, have you installed cameras at the various locations where it makes sense to install cameras? Let's use the most obvious example that maybe you don't see all the time, but believe me, comes across my desk every day, is someone who slips and falls at a drink station at a restaurant. And sometimes that's just it just happens. Someone happened to spill a little bit of soda on the ground, or an ice cube fell on the ground and melted, whatever happened, and there's a wet spot and someone slips and falls. A camera will identify when that substance actually got onto the ground. How much time was it on the ground before the business owner had a chance to go get that cleaned up? It will also detect when someone intentionally spills the soda on the ground and then fakes slipping and falling in the soda just to bring a claim. I wish I could tell you that doesn't happen very often, but it does happen very often. And so cameras strategically placed throughout your place of business are imperative to help defend those claims. I will tell you that when we get those claims in, again, we specialize in these sorts of things, so we kind of know what to do with these things. What we typically do is invite the claimant's lawyer over to the defense lawyer's office to view the video that we have. We don't give it to them. We let them view it. And most of the time we see these claims go away very quickly because they don't want to go into court and get embarrassed by that type of video. So it's very important to have that. The next thing that we really encourage, and this is how we partner with our insureds, we want you to report these claims early. I know there's a mindset out there in the world that says, gosh, I really don't want to report this to my insurance company because it's going to make my premiums go up. I might not get such favorable renewal terms. So I'm going to try and put this in my pocket and hope it goes away. I'm here to suggest to you that's not a great strategy with your business insurance. You want to select a business insurance partner that wants complete transparency with you as to what your claim situation is, because that early reporting is essential to helping us help you get that claim resolved for the least amount of money possible. And it's that early investigation that really helps us get that going. So a thorough investigation is key. Go ahead. Oh, there we go. So I'll give you a quick example of one way that we do this. As I mentioned, we insure a lot of delivery oriented franchises, and there are auto accidents. Sometimes the auto accidents, unfortunately, are quite severe. So we've instituted an emergency response hotline that our insureds can call toll free, hopefully within a couple of hours of the accident happening, so that we can get a team of investigators out there immediately to capture all of that evidence that might not be there in a few days. Think about Ring doorbells that might be throughout the neighborhood where the accident happened. Think about that 7-Eleven or some other business on the street corner that might have a camera, a security camera, that might have some helpful footage, witnesses, tire marks, all of that stuff that might vanish after a few days. We want to get that evidence right away. Now, I'll tell you that 9 times out of 10, that's not a scientific number, but just a gut number. 9 times out of 10, the evidence is going to help us defend that claim. That 10th time, it's going to tell us, this was our insured driver's fault. And so we're not going to waste a lot of time, energy, and most importantly, money trying to defend this claim. We're going to try and get this case settled as early as we possibly can. But most of the time, that evidence is helping us to defend either the liability aspect or the damage aspect of that claim. And the earlier we know about it, the earlier we get started on it. We're not going to let that sit around. We want to get all that evidence. The easiest way to have a clean loss run is to not have losses. So how do we prevent those losses? There's all kinds. This is not going to be an exhaustive list of things you can do to prevent losses. And some of the stuff, as I said, like installing cameras, might not prevent losses, but it goes into that earlier category of mitigating those losses when they might happen. But loss prevention is stuff that you will do to reduce the number of claims, the frequency of claims, and the amount that you have to spend. So stuff that you probably already do are like employee criminal background checks. Now, it depends on the type of employee that you're hiring. Employees who are in a position that tends to turn over fairly quickly, it might be a lower wage job. You may not invest in doing a criminal background check on those folks. Other folks, you might invest in doing a background check. It depends. Every situation is different, and you have to decide. Well, again, is there a return on doing that? But we have had claims where folks have kind of gone rogue and gotten and engaged in criminal activity during the course of their employment or just adjacent to it. So sometimes a criminal background check having been done can be a shield for you that says, look, before I hired this person who, classic example, we've seen a lot of violence claims recently where folks don't respond properly to an upset customer and it becomes violent instead of just a discussion. And then the lawsuit comes and it's like, well, this guy had a list of assault claims as long as your arm. And how come you didn't know about that? Well, this was a minimum wage employee working behind the counter of a fast food restaurant. We didn't do a background check on this person. I'm not suggesting that you needed to in that situation. I'm just saying if you had and it was clean, you have the ability to say, look, there was no way we could have known this guy had a propensity for violence. We did the background check. Everything seemed to be spotless. So it's a way you can kind of prevent those losses. Floor mats. This seems like a silly one, but when it's raining outside and people come in, a floor mat's going to absorb the water off their shoes before they track it into your place of business, and so that's going to prevent some slip and falls. Also, if where your employees have because of the nature of their job, have to stand for a long time, the right kind of floor mat where your employee is standing is going to prevent their legs from fatiguing and prevent some of those injuries that happen from constant repetition of either just standing or stepping or whatever. It's that extra cushion that if you've ever stood on concrete for 8 hours at a time, you were more comfortable with a rubber mat underneath your feet. Regular inspection protocol and documentation. Again, I'm going to geek out on you for just a minute about what a slip and fall accident entails when it goes into a lawsuit. A lot of people have the perception that when someone slips and falls on your premises, that automatically creates a legal liability. That is not the case. There's all sorts of criteria that have to be met for a claimant to be in a position to recover legally from you. And one of those is that you as the business owner only have to take reasonable precautions against someone slipping and falling. You are not the guarantor of the safety of the folks who come onto your premises. So going back to the earlier example of the spill on the floor, if the spill has only been there for 5 minutes, it's not reasonable to expect that your employees have detected and then made safe or removed that spill in just a very short period of time. You see this all the time in grocery stores with grapes going onto the ground. How much time was that grape on the ground? How much time was that soda spilled on the ground? If you have and I'll give you another example. No one has cameras in the bathroom. And we see claims all the time, a lot of times from claimants who are not necessarily honest, but they go into the bathroom because they know there's no camera and they poured a bunch of water on the ground. And then they say, well, there was water in the bathroom and that's why I slipped and fell. If you have a regular inspection protocol and then document your inspections, so let's say you inspect your bathrooms every 2 hours, You want to make sure that folks are writing that down and saying, I inspected the bathroom, the sink was clean, the toilet was clean, the floor was dry, etc. Because when that little tube that goes from your water, the water intake up into the toilet, when that little tube bursts, and eventually they do, water is going to be all over the floor. But if you've been there 15 minutes earlier and written down, I was there at 12 o'clock, and then you have the camera outside the bathroom shows when the claimant goes in at 12:15, you've got a pretty good argument to say, you know what, we inspected it at 11:45, or we inspected it at noon, and at 12:15, when this guy went in, there was no way we could have known that that water had gotten on the floor. Sorry that happened, but we took reasonable precautions. We met our burden. And then, of course, there's training. You want your folks to be trained in how to respond to all these situations. When the water is spilled, here's where you put the wet floor signs. Here's how you mop the floor. Here's how you do stuff in a safe way. When you're operating a knife, you know, the sharp part of the blade goes away from your body. You use your non-dominant hand in a way to hold the box, so the box cutter is going away from your non-dominant hand. All these things are training to help your folks avoid these losses. What I'm here to suggest to you, the biggest thing you can do to prevent losses is to emphasize and make it your highest priority to have a culture of safety throughout your organization. And what do I mean by a culture of safety? What I mean is that safety is the highest priority for your customers and for your employees, and that each one of your employees is empowered to improve safety, so that when your employees who have their eyes trained on every aspect of your business see something that could be safer, they say something, and they're empowered to do whatever's necessary, even if there's an investment involved, to make sure that everything is as safe as possible. And I'll give you the example of this, and maybe you'll find it as inspiring as I did. But of course, I'm a risk management geek, so forgive me. But there was a gentleman by the name of Paul O'Neill, who became the chief executive officer of Alcoa, Aluminum Company of America, now just Alcoa, back in the 80s. And Alcoa was not doing well. And he got up in front of the financial press in his very first press conference. They said, well, what are you going to do to improve the financial performance of Alcoa? And his answer is, you're asking me the wrong question. My only goal, my only measurement is whether or not every Alcoa employee goes home every night safely. We are going to be a zero accident company. That was his entire message. And it was a very strange thing to say at the time, but it turned Alcoa around. The bad financial results became great financial results. And I'm not going to suggest that it was all because of safety, but it was because he got the entire company engaged around safety. And having done that, he was able to get the entire company engaged around all of the other metrics that would allow for better financial performance. A couple of great stories about this. One, there was a salesman who came to an Alcoa factory on a rainy day. He got out of his car and he was going to make his way quickly to the door so he wouldn't quite get so wet. An Alcoa employee at the factory saw this man start running from his car, went up to the gentleman and said, whoa, 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 stop, get back in your car. I'm going to get you an umbrella and walk you in myself, because at Alcoa, we don't run. We want you to be safe during your visit. There's an employee who understood there was a risk, and he was empowered to go take action about it. And another was, there was a young employee at a factory in Arizona who unfortunately got killed on the job. And what happened was a machine jammed. And so he climbed over the safety rig and got into the machine and unjammed the machine, but as soon as he unjammed the machine, another part that spun very quickly came around and hit him in the head. And what became obvious by looking at the situation was that someone must have taught him how to do that. This is a very young, new employee. How would he know to go jump across and how to unjam the thing if that hadn't been taught to him? And so the Alcoa management team went down there and said, wait, this can't be. Everyone has to understand that we shut down the entire line when something like that happens. No one's going to be at risk. We don't, productivity doesn't mean anything if this guy doesn't go home safely at night. And that became the culture throughout the organization. You can implement that too at your company. There's a much lower risk probably than someone's extruding aluminum through at very high temperatures and very high speeds. From that story, I would just tell you that this is the Peter Drucker quote, right? What gets measured gets managed. And so as you design your safety program at your organization, how is your reward structure set up with safety involved so that what gets measured from a safety standpoint gets managed by your managers and your employees, and that everyone adopts that safety culture. With that, I'll turn it back over to Greg for some closing remarks.
Absolutely. So what's important as you begin to either analyze your current policy, or if you are opening your own franchise here in the near future, is to make sure that you're asking your current carrier, certain questions to make sure that you're getting the policy set up in the way that it needs to be set up. And one is, how many other businesses to ensure they're similar to mine? You want to make sure that you have someone who has the experience and the exposures and risks that you're about ready to take on. And we all want to do business with people we like, that we know. We also need to make sure we're doing business with people that know what we need. So that's usually the first primary question you want to ask your insurance company. The next is, what is the insurance company's financial strength and size? That's going to have a massive impact on whether or not they can pay their claims. Something you can check into is the AM Best rating for the insurance companies that's actually handling the risk, to ensure that the money that you're putting in is going to fully protect you if you ever need to use it. Another aspect you want to look at is what does your process look like for analyzing my coverages and my risk management needs? Again, it comes back to ensuring that you have an individual or a company that has a strong understanding of what your line of business is and what may entail, so that you have the right coverages in place to protect you when and if you ever need it. Another piece is, who would be my primary contact for daily requests? You may have your insurance agent, but is your insurance agent going to be that go-between between you and your needs and the ultimate company? Or are you going to have a primary point of contact that can take care of your requests right there on the spot? So you want to make sure that the service levels that you are going to eventually need are going to be met by whatever kind of insurance setup that you're going to go with, whether it's going to be a direct type company or a brokerage or third party type insurance agreements. Another one you want to ask is, how will I be able to access my policy information? That may seem pretty straightforward. That's you're being issued a policy that should be very accessible to you. That's not always going to be the case. So making sure that you have a strong understanding of, do I have a paper document? Is the document going to be online? Is there a portal that I can access to ensure that I can get a hold of my policy information when I need it, such as getting a certificate of insurance or trying to identify what claim may fall under what type of coverage. And then finally, a question you may want to ask is, who will handle our claims and how well do they understand our specific claims type? And again, it goes back to making sure that you're working with a company that has a strong understanding of your business needs and the line of business that you're doing, so that as a claim comes in, that claims representative that is managing that file knows the situations, and as Larry has pointed out, has that expertise of identifying what risks may occur, what the claim may entail, to be able to really delve in to do that investigation to identify how it should be best handled. So just some basic questions you want to make sure to ask your carrier so that you can ensure the policy that you're paying money for is going to truly protect you and your business moving forward. But again, I just want to thank you all so much. I want to thank ApplePie Capital for inviting us today, Randy for hosting us. Should you have any questions about your current coverages, or you're curious as to a comparison with your current coverages, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. This is what we're in business to do, is to make business better for you and to be your insurance partner so you can focus on your business while we focus on your insurance needs. Thank you all very much. Randy?
Yeah, at this point, I don't see any questions in the question section. I'll give it a second as I kind of send my closing remarks, and I'll circle back to them if something pops up. But Greg and Larry, thank you for putting together such good content. For those who've joined, as you can see, they're experts in what they do, and ultimately the goal of Intrepid specifically is to create programs that are relevant for your business, but also educate you on things that you might not be aware of that could help you prevent some risk. So at any rate, they've been a great partner with most of the franchise concepts that we work with. I've met Bill Stroud maybe 10, 15 years ago, even before I became a part of ApplePie Capital, and they just keep growing within the franchise business model. So good partners to have on the insurance side. And from our perspective, I have to give a little bit of a plug. We've seen some operators save significant money by going over to Intrepid, which at the end of the day gives you more bottom line income, because that is a direct pass through to the bottom line. And cost isn't the only thing, as both Larry and Greg pointed out, but it's certainly something to consider as you go through it. I did not see any questions that have popped up, so I think at this point we'll just end with this. We will be sending a copy of the presentation as well as a recording of the webinar to those that have joined. And ultimately, if you know any other franchisees that could have an interest, please feel free to pass that to them as well.